for game and for glory.
In this episode, we're going to talk about cooperative games, what they are, how they work, share a few of our favorites, and discuss if they relate to our walk as Christians. Here's a quick spoiler. They do. So what is a cooperative board game? To start, a cooperative board game is one where players work together to achieve a common goal.
So this is the flip side or the opposite of a competitive game in which players compete against each other for victory. I think most of us are more familiar with competitive games since historically most games are competitive with either one individual winner or one team winning over the other team.
However, in a cooperative game, everybody wins by reaching the noted objective, or everybody loses by not achieving that objective by the time a certain event triggers the end of the game.
So now we're going to talk about the history of cooperative board games, and get ready for this because it goes back further than you might think. I was surprised when I saw the research that Tom had done for this video. Obviously, they're not as old as competitive board games, but I was surprised to see how old some modern cooperative board games actually are.
So in the 70s, a company named Family Pastimes from Perth, Canada, decided to focus solely on what they called cooperative games. Why? Because they believed that competition was part of what was wrong with the world today. Now, before you stop listening, just bear with us. Don't hold it against the entire genre. I hope you'll see that there is a lot that cooperative games have to offer.
Yeah, there are some games that are specifically non-competitive, and I think that's a little bit different, although you might argue that you work together in those games, but I don't think it's quite the same. For example, do you remember the Ungame? It was a game that we came across while getting a yard sale together with some family members. Apparently it was an old game like from the 70s or so. But it was focused on communication. It was definitely non-competitive, but unfortunately it was completely uninteresting. It just drug on. There was no tension. There was, no conflict or challenge to pull the players together. So luckily, however, most modern cooperative tabletop games bring a level of tension and challenge to kind of take the place of that player against player competition.
So one of the earliest games that fit our modern definition of cooperative games, it's from the 1980s. The Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. In this, players receive a mystery where they will gather clues and they will work together to solve the case.
I know that game is actually on our wish list, and I was surprised to see that it's as old as it was, and it's really held up in the modern game space. But I think the key here is that mystery, right? It's what brings the challenge. Yeah. It's what brings that bite or that tension and keeps the players interested.
Yeah, that tension and even the shared common goal is necessary for a good cooperative game. So now after Sherlock Holmes, the 80s kind of settled in and things were fairly quiet on the production front for cooperative games until really the turn of the century into the 21st century. In 2000, game designer Reiner Knizia developed a cooperative game for The Lord of the Rings, which influenced several other games. And by 2008, Matt Leacock designed and released Pandemic. So in Pandemic, 4 diseases have broken out in the world, each threatening to wipe out a region. As a result, up to 4 players will work together, with each playing one of 7 possible asymmetric roles. They attempt to discover cures for all 4 diseases before any of several possible game-losing conditions are reached.
Pandemic was a phenomenal success, and one of the key features of this game that other games have used is this element of danger that intensifies throughout the game. It's either triggered at certain points in the game or when players do certain things. And then as these events happen, players get closer and closer to a losing condition as they're trying to achieve the winning goal. So in Pandemic, we have players essentially against the game. Yet it's not overly punishing. And this is a tightrope that cooperative games really need to walk, because they can't be too easy to win where you lose interest, but they also can't be too difficult. So they have to be challenging, but winnable.
Now that said, most of these games provide opportunities for us to ratchet up the level of difficulty. This provides good replayability, while it also continues to provide a challenge. Even though that goal is going to remain the same every time you play the game for the most part, you're going to have that opportunity to say, yeah, but can we do it when it's this hard? There are currently quite a few cooperative games in the BGG Top 100 at this point, which demonstrate to us that the mechanism that is cooperative games has gained a foothold in board gaming today.
So yeah, Tom and I actually really enjoy watching content by the group, the Dice Tower, and they put out, review videos, top 10 videos, but they also have put together an award ceremony that they've been doing for a while at Gen Con, where they nominate and award games based on certain categories. And actually now cooperative games are a category of games that they'll give an award to, Best Cooperative Game. And watching their Summer Spectacular Dice Tower award nominations for this year, 2024, Z Garcia noted that at this point, when we sit down to teach a game or introduce a game to new players, oftentimes we'll just start by even specifying, is it a cooperative game or is it a competitive game? And that just speaks to the prevalence of this genre now in modern board gaming.
So while I love Pandemic, I found a game that kind of takes the cooperative category by the horns for me. The Captain is Dead. In this game, players are members of a space crew whose ship has been attacked by aliens. The ship's hyperdrive is down, and they find themselves to be sitting ducks for their would-be attackers. Now, during the initial attack, the captain was killed. Now, the crew must hold off the attackers long enough to fix the hyperdrive and then jump into hyperspace to escape the attacks. Much like Pandemic, there are elements of danger that increase regularly. The players are asymmetrical, and there's multiple ways for the team to lose. So I personally like this game more than Pandemic because of the added excitement of the NPC. The enemy will attack or even invade the ship. Additionally, unlike Pandemic, the game's not limited to 4 players, and so there's a wide variety of asymmetrical roles, characters, as well as each room that you go into in the ship allows for different functionality. So I think that's really exciting. There's a tension that is created in this game as players work together while dreading what may come with the next turn.
I think at the moment, I would choose The Crew as my favorite cooperative game. We played this with a few different groups, and I think there's more there that I want to explore. The Crew is a trick-taking game, so if you think euchre, that might help you understand what it's about. But in this game, you're not just trying to take the most tricks. Depending on what goals are pulled out each game, and they vary depending on what's strong, it might be that one player has to take all the tricks, or another player has to end up with certain cards in the tricks that they take. But the kicker is that all of this has to be done with very limited communication. So it definitely does not allow any space for an alpha gamer, which can be an issue in a cooperative game. Somebody who might be tempted to, tell the other players what to do on their next turn. And this is not a factor in this game at all because you can't really talk to the other players. So it creates this really neat tension as you're playing these cards out to kind of see, are we all on the same page? Is it going to work out? Or are we going to end up not achieving our goal and losing?
So what kind of cooperative game cause us to reflect upon when we think of the Christian walk? There's so many ways to go with this, so many places to go, but there are a few things that I think we can quickly grab comparisons. First is Ecclesiastes chapter 4, 8 through 12, which states, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their efforts. For if either falls, his companion can lift him up, but pity the one who falls without another to lift him up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they can keep warm, but how can one person alone keep warm? And if someone overpowers one person, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Now, Solomon gives us bullet points here. 2 produce better than 1 person. If 2 work together and 1 falls, the other's there to help them out. And then 2 are able to keep themselves warm when it's cold outside a whole lot better than 1 person by themselves. And finally, if somebody's attacked, 2 people can resist that attacker so much better than 1. And if you have 3, man, that's going to be hard for 1 person to take down. Without cooperation, none of these benefits that Solomon plays out are possible.
So, yeah, I agree. And I think that the idea of shared burden is really encouraging in the microcosm of a game, but more importantly, in the Christian walk. God encourages us in the New Testament through Apostle Paul to bear one another's burdens in Galatians 6:2. It was interesting. We saw the impact of isolationism during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Even if making connections is challenging for some, as it is for me sometimes, we were able to witness how vital those connections actually are because of the impact of the absence of those connections in people's lives. So that just to me served to highlight the fact that God really does know what's best for his creation.
Yeah, he certainly does. In fact, we see the importance of this in the life of Moses. In Exodus chapter 17, Joshua and the Israelites are fighting against the Amalekites. And this battle is going on while Moses stands on a mountain with his hands lifted up to God. Now, as long as Moses' arms were lifted up, Joshua and the Israelites, they were winning the battle. But if Moses' arms started to weigh down because they'd been up so long, Joshua and the Israelites were losing and the Amalekites were winning. So, 2 men, Aaron and Hur, they come alongside Moses and they create a place for him to sit. And then they held his arms up so that Joshua and the Israelites would be victorious in battle. So we see here teamwork between the boots on the ground and Joshua and Israel with Moses and his arms lifted to God. But we also see the teamwork of Aaron and Hur with Moses as they hold his arms up. But all of it points to all of their dependence upon God, leading them, protecting them, guarding them. Now, this is where we really get to the heart of it. We as Christians need each other in order to encourage and build one another up. God has created his church in such a way that we are to build each other up so that we can continue to live dependently upon our Lord and not grow cold. 2 verses speak to this exact thing. 1 Thessalonians 5:11, which states, "Therefore encourage one another and build one another up just as you are doing." And Hebrews 3:13, which states, "But encourage one another day after day, as long as it is called today, so that none of you are hardened by the deceitfulness of sin."
This is something that should differentiate us as believers from the world, even as we sit down to a cooperative or competitive game. It's a reminder to be mindful of the individuals around the table and their experience. The question is winning cooperatively or competitively more important than being the encouragement that we're called to be? Mm-hmm. Are we mindful of the experiences of others within the body of Christ even? Are they being victorious in their walk, or do they need encouragement?
Hopefully, as we play these kind of games and reflect on them, we can not only see the connections, but can encourage one another through them.
We hope that you were encouraged by what you heard and learned a little bit more about the rich variety now available in modern tabletop gaming. If you're new to the hobby, it's a great time to get started because I am sure that there is at least one game out there that you'll connect with. If you're a seasoned gamer and you have some additional thoughts that you would like to share related to this genre, cooperative games, please put those in the comments. And if our discussion about bearing one another's burdens and encouraging one another spurred any additional thoughts or questions, please feel free to put those in the comments as well. I'm Janelle.
And I'm Tom. This has been For Game and for Glory.
Until next time.